There will always be a relationship between WWE and real-world celebrities, whether they're movie stars, world-class athletes, or retired astronauts. WWE wants the mainstream to accept them and will break their backs to book somebody famous if it will get them column inches and attract casual viewers. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, though, it's so bad that I'm compelled to make a video and tear it all to shreds in the vain hope that it never ever happens again. These are those times. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 disastrous WWE Celebrity Appearances. Join us. Number 10, Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller is a fine actor and a big A-list celebrity, so it's hardly surprising that WWE would want to get involved with him, especially as he was a star on the rise in July of 1999 and they were riding that Attitude Era wave. Stiller was drafted in to simultaneously give WWE a bit more mainstream pub, while the actor used the platform to promote his upcoming Mystery Men film. His first appearance on that episode of Raw was in one of those backstage GTV hidden camera segments. Cue some very on-the-nose movie shilling, which then segued into Stiller talking incessantly about Deborah's puppies, discussing his desire to bury his face in them, like a Gen X Jerry Lawler, before he discovered the camera. Later in the show, Big Ben came to the ring to meet Deborah's puppies in person, which ended with Jeff Jarrett trapping him in the figure 4. It was bad, and according to then lead WWE writer Vince Russo, Stiller was hard to find beforehand because he had been hanging out with Road Dogg and X-Pac and, well, let me just say they weren't playing tic-tac-toe. The primetime promotion did absolutely nothing to help Mystery Men, which totally bombed at the box office. Number 9, Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke's flatlining Hollywood career got a much-needed boost when he won the role of Randy the Ram Robinson in The Wrestler, a tale of a washed-up former superstar who was broken down and forced to play weekend warrior as he attempted to rebuild his life. It was a killer part, and Rourke, who must have seen some similarities between his and the Ram's life, absolutely nailed it. When he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor, WWE decided they wanted to get him in and somehow booked Rourke in a match against Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 25. However, when Mickey called out Y2J on the red carpet of the SAG Awards, his representatives got cold feet, worried that an association with WWE would ruin his chances of winning the Golden Statue. So he pulled out, and though he was still involved, he wouldn't be working a match. Jericho ended up beating 3 legends in a gauntlet match at Mania before calling Rourke out and getting knocked out for his trouble. Making the whole thing even sillier, Rourke supposedly showed up in Houston with 3 bodyguards because he didn't know that Jericho was working when the two had a war of words on Larry King. Number 8, the Miller Lite Catfight Girls. Alright, so calling Tanya Ballinger and Kitana Baker celebrities might be pushing it a little bit, but the fact is that the Miller Lite Catgirls were a featured part of the promotion for WrestleMania 19. It wasn't exactly Mike Tyson raising the hand of new WWE champion Steve Austin, but WWE were happy to have them on hand at the Showcase of the Immortals. And guess what they did on the night? That's right, they had a catfight. I mean, you weren't expecting them to recite Tolstoy, were you? The duo got into it with Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler after the 4 of them couldn't agree on who created WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan or Vince McMahon, and a curse on whoever scripted that argument, by the way. A bed was brought out onto the stage and the 4 flopped around for a while before they turned their attentions towards the coach, who was providing live play-by-play of what was mainly pillow shots. His pants were pulled down and he was pinned by one of the Miller Lite girls, obviously. I'm just sure Rob Van Dam, Kane, Lance Storm and Val Venus, who had their World Tag Title bout bumped to the Sunday Night Heat pre-show to accommodate this, got a real kick out of it. Number 7, Al Sharpton. A great many people watch WWE as an escape, to be entertained by the superstars in spandex and have their minds taken off of real-world stuff like the bills that need paying and the job they don't like. Most people who tune into Raw or SmackDown aren't going there to be reminded of serious issues and certainly don't want to be lectured about politics. So the decision to have Reverend Al Sharpton guest host an episode of Raw in autumn 2009 was a baffling one that didn't exactly pay off. The Rev was around to promote educational reform, which is slightly less entertaining than seeing somebody get put through a table, you know? Look, it is a noble cause, and I get that, but the audience didn't want to see him, as evidenced by the very negative reaction he received, and Sharpton himself visibly did not want to be there either. His main segments were a VIP lounge with MVP Mark Henry and Jericho, and backstage bits with Hornswoggle, Jillian Hall and the Bellas, and, well, they were pretty frickin' awful. Jericho later said that Sharpton was the worst of the Raw guest hosts as he showed up late, left early, and generally acted above it all. Number 6, Art Donovan. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know who Art Donovan is, but based on what I learned by watching the 1994 King of the Ring, he played in the NFL for the Baltimore Colts, and according to Gorilla Monsoon, was actually called Art O'Donnell. Now, obviously, it's not the smartest idea to invite a local sports legend to commentate a show that is internationally broadcast, since most people outside of Maryland probably didn't care about Art Donovan. But still, it is an exceptionally worse idea to invite a 69-year-old with probable multiple concussions and absolutely zero product knowledge to call the action, of course. The man had no clue who any of the wrestlers were, what storylines were happening, or, to be honest, what was going on in general. He spent most of the show asking a million questions, most of which were inevitably, how much does this guy weigh? And by the end of the broadcast, Monsoon and co-commentator Randy Savage were just flat out ignoring him. Commentary isn't easy, and there's an art to it, obviously, but clearly there should have never been an art doing it. Number 5, Jerry Springer. For me, the late 90s were all about professional wrestling, South Park, my pet Tamagotchi, and the impending global catastrophe that was sure to be caused by the Y2K bug. I didn't really relate to Jerry Springer, probably because my brother wasn't secretly dating my cousin who was cheating on him with the pizza guy, but I understand that there was probably some audience overlap between his show and WWE Attitude Era programming. So it would make sense for the two sides to do business together. In the late 90s, that is, not during WWE's PG era. The controversial talk show host became the Raw guest host in 2010 and brought a version of his own program with him, presenting a ridiculous in-ring segment centered around trying to find out the father of Kelly's baby. Q Santino, Great Khali, Chris Masters, the Bellas, and Eve before WWE decided to double down on predictability with not only a Hornswoggle punchline, but a Mae Young one too. Several years later, WWE actually brought Springer back as part of the feud between Nikki and Brie. Fool me once, Vince McMahon. Number 4, LAVAR Ball. If you're bringing a celebrity into the world of WWE, there is probably no safer pair of hands than The Miz to guide them through it and ensure that, at the very least, the outsider won't make a complete fool of themselves. However, not even Mike himself could save the absolute train wreck that was the June 26, 2017 episode of Miz TV on Raw. Former basketball great and polarizing public figure LAVAR Ball was the guest, and oh boy, was it a doozy. Ostensibly there with two of his sons to promote his Big Baller brand and the upcoming Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, viewers probably tuned out only thinking about what LAVAR was smoking and where they could get some of it. Not only did one of his kids utter the N-word on live TV, which WWE subsequently apologized for, but LAVAR completely took over the segment, cutting a promo full of nonsensical lines before taking his shirt off and running about a bit. According to Miz, when he attempted to rehearse their segment beforehand, LAVAR assured him that they were good and decided to wing it. And there's another argument for the case against spontaneity in wrestling. Number 3, Jeremy Piven and Ken Jeong. It takes a real special sort of talent to be the most annoyingly obnoxious Raw guest host ever. Hollywood stars Jeremy and Ken obviously have talent in spades, because out of the seemingly hundreds of celebrities that were drafted in to take charge of WWE's flagship, they were just the worst. There to shill their film, The Goods, Live Hard, Sell Hard, Piven and Jeong were all over the friggin' show, interacting with everyone from The Miz, Randy Orton and John Cena, to Big Show, Chavo Guerrero, and the Divas. None of what they did added to the show and was mostly a turn-off, as they spoke down to all of the WWE talent and generally acted clueless about the product, something that was easily confirmed when Piven referred to the Summerfest pay-per-view. The jokes they made were unfunny, and everything they appeared in seemed to drag on for an age. Although, who am I to complain? After all, their appearance here helped their film go on to break box office records. Hold on a second, that bombed as well. Good. Number 2, Steve-O and Chris Pontius. WWE and Jackass, two of my favourite things colliding live on Monday Night Raw. What could possibly go wrong? Besides everything. Steve-O and Chris Pontius were in attendance to promote the film Jackass No. 2 and were brought to the ring to be interviewed by Todd Grisham. A clearly plastered Steve-O said some silly stuff before he was interrupted by Armando Alejandro Estrada, and, well, it didn't take a genius to figure out where this was going. Soon enough, Umaga was on the scene and the Wild Boys accepted the fight, though not before Steve-O got to show off with a backflip from the top rope. They were beaten down, as planned, but Steve-O's non-existent selling caused the Samoan bulldozer to snap, return to the ring, and lay in a few extra stiff shots for good measure. Still not getting the memo and trying to laugh his way through the pain, Steve-O ate a few more potatoes until he finally did the smart thing and stayed down. Not only did this segment go off the rails, but Steve-O reportedly upset many people backstage with his erratic behaviour. Number 1. Kevin Federline. The October 16th, 2006 episode of Raw didn't just feature a celebrity appearance from the Jackass lads. Since it was taking place at LA's Staples Center, all the stars were there. All the stars like Kevin Federline. You remember Kevin Federline, don't you? Of course you don't. K-Fed was the then husband of Britney Spears, who fancied himself something of a rapper and had about 10 minutes of fame for, well, being Britney's baby daddy. I mean, what, was Christina Aguilera's cousin unavailable or something? Federline began a feud with John Cena, which saw him cost the Doctor of Thugonomics the main event of Cyber Sunday, leading to a match between the two on the January 1st, 2007 Raw. Amazingly, WWE actually booked the Z-Lister to go over their champion in order to further the feud between Cena and Umaga. While Federline played the role of irritating twat to the best of his abilities and was reportedly very easy to work with and well liked backstage, this whole saga was WWE at their mainstream publicity craving worst.